Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. I'm Dustin. Heading into week 7 already. It always flies by. Before we get into the must-adds in all leagues though, FanDuel, if you haven't started playing them, they're a lot of fun. FST 2014, when you deposit money, go ahead and use that code. Help us out a little bit. Let's start with running backs. Plenty to talk about this week. Ronnie Hillman's the first guy I want to talk about. Only on 45% of leagues, and I know people's hesitation to pick him up. They weren't sure if he was going to get the carries. His matchups weren't that great. All those questions were answered. Hillman is clearly the guy as of right now. The guy to own until Ball comes back. I don't think he'll have much value once Ball comes back, if Ball can be healthy. But Hillman's the guy to own right now. Needs to be owned in more leagues. Jerick McKinnon for Minnesota is the next guy, only on 40% of leagues. We all knew that he had a chance to, sneak into Asiata's carries, but it was a lot of sneaking in. He basically took over. I didn't really think it was going to happen that soon, but at this point, you got to pick up McKinnon in all leagues. He's been solid. He's been solid, and if he continues to get more carries and becomes the featured back there, he could have a lot of upside. He needs to be owned in all leagues. Mark Ingram, don't forget about him. It's time to pick him back up if he was dropped in your league. He might get eased back into action a little bit, but a couple weeks from now, he should be back to where he was at the beginning of the year. Antone Smith's another guy. Been talking about him for a few weeks now. He still keeps producing and only about 6 touches or less a game. It's unbelievable. They gotta find a way to get this guy more carries, and I think they will. I think it's clear that he needs the ball in his hand. He has looked impressive. Another solid game. He just keeps finding the end zone and such limited touches. You have to think that at some point he's not going to get in the end zone and he could burn you if you start him. But if Steven Jackson goes down, Smith could be solid there in the second half. Joseph Randle's another person I want to talk about as a guy to add in deeper leagues. Very surprised to see that he's only owned in 5% of leagues. With the workload that DeMarco Murray's been getting, it's only a matter of time until he gets hurt. And Murray owners, you need to get Randle on your team, because if Murray goes down, Randle's going to be someone you definitely want to own. So kind of surprised he's only on 5% of leagues. Now that bye weeks, some of them are out of the way. You might have more room on your bench. If you got Murray, you're going to want to handcuff there in that situation, I believe. Storm Johnson, another guy I want to talk about, only on about 5% of leagues. I talked about him last week. Ended up getting the starting nod. He found the end zone, but other than that, he wasn't all that impressive. So I'm not necessarily sure if he did well enough to take over the starting job there, but I think he is worth an add in deeper leagues just to see how this one shakes out. And one other deeper league in running back is Trey Mason for the Rams. Looked pretty good. We'll see. It's kind of a mess out there. Stacy and Cunningham, but Mason's a guy that I really like in deeper leagues, deep league stash. Just throw him on your bench and see if he ends up, getting more involved in that offense. Let's take a look at receivers. Mohamed Sanu, he's a wide receiver 1 as long as A.J. Green's out. And even when A.J. Green comes back, I think Sanu can flirt with a wide receiver 3, especially now that Marvin Jones is banged up again and probably not coming back. That's Sanu's job from here on out as far as being at least the number 2 wide receiver on the Bengals, and that makes him fantasy relevant. He needs to be on in all leagues. I think he'll have value for the rest of the season. Andre Holmes for Oakland, another guy I think that needs to be owned in all leagues. He's had a couple good weeks over the last few games or so. I think this kid could be the real deal. The Oakland offense is starting to look a little bit better. Carr hasn't looked terrible, and I think Holmes could have some value the second half. I like him. In deeper leagues, I want to talk about Cecil Shorts. When healthy, he's solid. And a lot like Oakland, the Jags, they're starting to get their passing game going just a little bit. I think Bortles is definitely an upgrade for them, and I do like Cecil Shorts if he can stay healthy. And I got to talk about Brandon LaFell because he's going to get picked up in a lot of leagues. And I think he should get picked up, but here's all I'm going to say about LaFell. New England receivers are very frustrating to own if your name's not Edelman. And even at that point, it's been pretty frustrating for Edelman owners. LaFell, I think, will have some more good games this year, but he's going to be inconsistent. Pick him up, but don't be using number 1 waiver on him. Don't be bidding $50 of your fab money on him. Pick him up, but don't go crazy over him. In deeper leagues, for a quarterback for you, Austin Davis. This is a guy that's coming along, looking pretty good. I like his upside. There's enough weapons on that Rams offense for him to throw to. I think he's worth a look in deeper leagues. A must-add in all leagues for tight ends, Jordan Reed. He came back. He looked good. He looked like we had hoped he would be coming into the season before his injury. We need to pick this guy back up. He could have value for the rest of the year, only on 60% of leagues. And one tight end in deeper leagues, Clay Harbor. I've written about him before in this post. He's interesting. He's been somewhat consistently involved in that Jags offense since he came back from injury, and I think he could have value for the rest of the year in deeper leagues if you need a tight end. And my pick up and play defense this week is Cleveland. They got Jacksonville going into the next week, and Cleveland's D's had some moments where they've looked pretty good, so I like Cleveland's D as a pickup and play. So this is just a portion of the list. See the full list. Get on the website. As always, get in the forums if you got any questions, and good luck this week.